And Cynthia, all right.
Hi there.
All of us are here. I'm going to call the meeting to order.
7:02.
Item of business is roll call, and Nia,
Present.
Lauren,
Present.
Ian, and baby.
Present.
No.
And Cynthia.
Present.
Any changes to the agenda? Any requests or deletions?
No,
Hey,
not that we're
No.
aware of.
Any oral communications?
We don't see anyone in the
No
attendees
raised
list.
hands or anything? Thank you. And then the approval of the minutes of the last meeting, which was January 21st, 2021. Have a motion to approve the minutes.
I move.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any changes or deletions? All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes and roll call vote, Nia,
Aye. Oh, yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Ian,
I'll abstain since I wasn't there.
and thank you, and Cynthia.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. And the next item is staff comments. And Elise.
Yes, so good evening, everyone. We're really excited to announce that tomorrow will be the installation date for the 8 temporary murals,
All right.
4 in the Calab district and 4 in the University Avenue district. And we have a handy little tool on MapMe that visitors will be able to see at the signage for each mural to help them find the other ones and more information about each artist. So I think Nadia is planning to pull that up in just a second.
Okay.
So we can show it to you.
Just 1 minute, sorry.
So here you can see the MapMe tool with the thumbnails and pins for the 4 that are here in the University Avenue district. And if you click on each one, you get a thumbnail of the mural, a little bit of a statement about the artwork, and a connection to the artist website where you can learn more about the artist. And so here are the 4 downtown. Without the Rain will be on City Hall Plaza and King Plaza. And then if we move over to California Avenue on the side of Izzy's is Liz Hickok's artwork, which will have an augmented reality, which I think will be up and running by Sunday. And then as you work your way up, It's a Beautiful Day. California Avenue Marching Band. And then Lost in My Abstract Garden. So you can see it'll be a fun tool to help people find them and also learn a little bit more about the artists. So the physical murals will be in place tomorrow by end of day, barring any weather complications. The other quick piece we wanted to update you on is the ArtLift microgrants. And so the first one is installed and in place already.
All right.
Which is the series of trees. Here you can see the Trees of Gratitude in Old Palo Alto. So this was an effort by a number of neighbors to decorate these trees. They got a lot of press for a recent installation they did with all face masks. This one also has face masks, but also has a Lunar New Year theme to it. And members of the community can add their wishes. So it's already getting a lot of attention. So that's really exciting. It's the first Art Lift project that's on the ground. Priyanka Rana, who has a piece that she is going to install in Johnson Park, has put out an open call for small toys and figurines to incorporate into her sculpture. And she's getting a lot of feedback and has already collected some really touching stories about moms and parents, being able to connect and find one another to donate toys, and really generating some excitement in the neighborhood for it. And Susan Mead will soon begin leaving artworks around town on her daily walks for people to find and keep for themselves. And then there are instructions on how to post on social media that you found one. So hopefully with the hashtags, we will have this amazing collection of people's self-portraits with the artwork, their newly acquired artworks. So those are kind of the first 3 out of the gate, but we do have one on the ground already. The next deadline for the art grants is Friday the 19th for the next review panel. And here are a couple of other projects that came in since the last time we spoke about the art grants. So the one on the left is by Needle Studio. If you're not familiar with them, they are a small sewing studio in the beginning of this COVID lockdown. They actually mobilized hundreds of community volunteers who made homemade masks and donated them to the city for our first responders. They have made a proposal to distribute the materials for each member of the community who wants to participate to create a quilting square, and then they will assemble it and put it all together to make one larger quilt. It's a great way to engage particularly some of our more seasoned population who may not be getting out as much. And at the end of the time, we can find a place to display it or donate it to perhaps one of our partners at Avenidas or something like that. There's another project by Christopher Jett, and it's a soundscape artwork that will take place over the course of a day or 2. And it's sort of a mindful meditational walk through the park. And there will be 2 live performers where the little sunshine markers are, playing single string instruments. And in the center, there is a tower of sort of ambient sound. So as you walk through, the sounds will really change and evolve, and it's meant to be a meditative walk. So those are some of the other projects coming in. Alicia Cardell on the left hoped that there might be some concrete K-rails available. Now that we've switched to the water-filled ones, we may have to put it on a vinyl over a water-filled one. So we're working on a little pivot there. But with some very whimsical health messaging there for the community. The project on the right is an artwork by Lauren Berger, and I apologize, I don't recall her collaborator's name, but they created this artwork together and did a small pilot with this positive messaging, and had a few restaurants and stores put it in their window. And the idea is that this would expand it, allow for more robust, larger printing, and for buttons that would be made available to the public, and some flags that would be put in various places around downtown. So reminding people that we're almost there, let's get through it. On the left, this was a proposal by Stephen Ashford, who is collaborating with a number of artists from East Palo Alto, the East Bay, Palo Alto, to create actually a song for young children about going back to school, you know, especially at a time where a lot of kids are really struggling with the idea of wanting to go back or not wanting to go back, but really having something uplifting for them and for families to play for their kids. And then on the right is a project by Robin Apple that would actually be a series of projections. So she has a number of these animated pieces where, for instance, the butterflies are flying through the scene. And originally she was going to try and do this outdoors, but it looks like we may have secured a storefront environment where it could just be on a timer and be safely shown where people can view it from the sidewalk.
Right.
And let's see, do we have any others to share this evening, Nadia, or is that it for microgrants tonight? I think that's it. Okay. So we've been a little busy with that. And the other announcement I just want to put on everyone's radar is the recruitment is not open yet for Public Art Commission, but I believe there are 3 of you whose term expires at the end of May. I checked with the clerk. They are planning to launch that recruitment in March. So of course, we'll keep you up to date on that timeline. And that's it for staff comments.
Right. Thank you, Elise. And I like your use of the term seasoned, describing us people. Thank you. Okay, the first action item is temporary artwork. And Elise, please.
Yes, thank you. As some of you may be aware, the Public Safety Building project is moving forward. Our understanding is that they are hoping to get notice to proceed at the end of this month. When we met with the Cal Ave community, both before the Public Safety Building and the garage projects were, well, when they were in the planning stages and in the course of the Cal Ave master plan, a lot of feedback came back about wanting more temporary public art throughout the space, especially having to do with construction mitigation, because the construction is really challenging on a lot of those merchants and the neighborhood community. So the project is moving forward. We are coming back to the commission requesting an amount up to $53,000. So let me just reacquaint you with this site briefly. So lot C7, actually on the left there, C7 is where the garage currently is and was just completed. So lot C6 is where the public safety building is planned to go. That construction project is estimated to take, I believe it was 880 days, which is pretty precise. So the thought was that we would do something similar to what we did for the garage construction and commission a series of 4 artists, 1 artist for each side. Here are the plain construction barriers that were put around the garage site before we incorporated artwork. And then hopefully you'll remember some of the artwork that we put there by Allison Kunath, Sam Price, and then Philip Hua, and now I'm blanking on, there we go, Ori Original was the 4th artist. So a real diversity of styles, really sort of encouraged people to walk around and explore a little bit more. We are proposing the same approach, partly because we got such positive feedback off of it last time. Also, we've gotten a lot of feedback from people wanting more opportunities for more emerging artists and local artists. So really thinking about continuing with our call to California Avenue, to California artists. And in this one, we're thinking we may actually limit it to surrounding counties so that we're really Bay Area specific on it. And then, so the 53,000 would be a high watermark amount for the first series of installations. So that would cover 4 artists and the fabrication and installation for 1 for each side. That being said, there are some unknowns on this project. So there may be a lot of things that will whittle down that budget amount. So we haven't, for instance, heard from the construction team where they need like their hours of operation signage, where they have gates where trucks are coming in and out. We're not going to put artwork on those kinds of spaces. And the other thing that occurs to us is having a better understanding of what's happening along Jacaranda Lane. So in the case of the garage, Jacaranda Lane actually had a lot of visibility because you have the parking lot of Antonio's Nut House there. So there was a portion of the mural that was visible there. You have a wide alley right next to Starbucks, which is very popular. And so people had a viewpoint there. And Jacaranda itself was heavily used for deliveries and people were walking through there. So it may be that as we move forward, that may not quite be the case for Jacaranda at the PSB construction site, in which case it may not make sense for us to commission an artist on that construction fence. One of the things we've talked about briefly that we may come back to the commission with is rather than commissioning artwork on the construction fence, it might make sense to have something on the adjacent alleyways or walls adjacent to the construction site, but not on the construction site fence itself. So that is, essentially that is what we were asking this evening. So that would be 4 artists, a $4,000 design fee for each of them. to go through the design development, turn over all the appropriate files. And then the rest of it would be for fabrication and installation. And with
Hey,
that,
thank
I will turn it over for any questions.
All right, thank you, Elise. Any questions or comments?
Sure, just really quickly, and the feedback was really positive the previous time, correct?
Yes.
Yes, the feedback was very positive, both from the artist community who are really excited to see more artists and not the usual suspects doing artwork in public spaces, but also the businesses really appreciated it. And I should say the neighbors, some of the community members who are quite vocal appreciated having something more attractive to look at the construction site.
Now, you mentioned that you may use adjacent alleyways instead of around the construction site. When would that determination be made?
So that's a great question. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that all of them would move. If Jacaranda is not going to be as active and visible, I think we would still recommend we do the other three sides, but then perhaps use the funding that would have been utilized for that Jacaranda side and explore with some of those adjacent building owners, the alleyway, for instance, between Kinko's and the Pilates place. Perhaps the wall adjacent to Cafe Pro Bono as people are approaching on Birch, so that there's something, bright and more interesting there. So that's what I'm saying is we would have to explore it. And that's if we feel like Jacaranda is really not going to be an impactful site, then we would look for other options.
Okay. Do we want to make maybe an amendment that that you go ahead and make that determination, and if it's more feasible to do the alleyway, then you go ahead and do it instead of coming back to us?
Yes. So, and thank you for asking that, because the timeline on this it's going to take us some time. By the time we do the artist call, we have a selection panel. If we have the call close in March, selection panel in April, by the time we get through contracts, artist design development, they have to revamp those designs frequently for various reasons, and then creating the vector files that are appropriate for print. We're probably looking at an install of June if we're able to get this call out in the next 10 days.
Okay.
So we'll almost be 100 days into that 880 calendar.
All right. Hey, any other questions or comments? Ian.
Yeah, sorry, Ben, I think Lauren, go ahead, please.
Oh, no, I was just saying, since we have a new art plan for the Avenue of the Arts, the California Business District, this is just going to be a great project. And I think people really appreciated the past murals that were on the construction fence. And that kept coming up again and again from artists and from locals that they would love to see more murals. And so this is a good way to showcase those. So thank you. I think it's going to be a really nice project. Go ahead, Ian.
No, I second that. I was just thinking sort of out loud when you think about the selection committee, and of course, local business is always represented, but it's a kind of a dynamic moment in the sense that the businesses on Cal Ave is sort of set up in the street and then taking it off the street and they're setting back up the street. But I expect in the summer, it'll be summer streets, hopefully, though I'm not up to date on that. But it is a place that I think people are walking more and where the businesses are much more consciously out in public space in a way they haven't been before. So the idea of our public art engaging with sort of commerce and business in that place strikes me as very important, perhaps even more important than it was before, because we're sort of all sharing this outdoor space together.
Yes, all right. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I actually have a comment, and this is based on our extensive discussion last week, reading the sort of the proposal to have racial justice based type work in the King Plaza, and then getting some of that content in some of the artworks that we promote. And I'm just wondering if, maybe that could be one of the suggested, themes, you know, I mean, and I wouldn't be restrictive. I would just say, hey, you know, this is, you know, maybe something that helps to promote diversity, promote, you know, whatever the thing that we talked about so much last time.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? All right, can I have a motion? And I think we want to have in the motion the option to move one of the artworks to an alleyway if necessary, and that the staff will be their option to do that instead of having to come back to us.
I'll motion.
Okay, thank you. I have a second.
A second.
All right, thank you. And then roll call vote, Nia,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Ian,
Yes.
Senya,
Yes.
and myself, yes, we have a unanimous. Thank you very much. We're really looking forward to this. I think it's just going to dress up that work site so much. I think that's a really good idea. All right, the next action item is a potential joint meeting with the Human Relations Commission. And this is also tied in with the temporary artwork, racial equity artwork for King Plaza. I think those are the two things that we want to move forward. And on the temporary artwork, I think we want to put a deadline of May to go ahead and send that on to council for their approval. So it gives us another month or two to make some discussions and come up with a plan to move forward with this. And with this plan, then with our meeting with the joint meeting with the Human Relations Commission, we can present this and move forward with whatever, you know, that they've got, and they've got that study that came out. So I think it's a good time to have a joint meeting with the HRC. So let's split this into two different discussions. The first, let's start with the joint meeting with the HRC. I think they're going through a lot like we are. And I think it's a good idea to meet with them jointly so we can present a united front on this instead of trying to go our separate ways. Any comments on that? The temporary meeting or joint meeting with the HRC?
I have a information point. So I believe the Palo Alto Art Center and Art Foundation also wants to have a joint meeting with the HRC. So I don't know if it makes sense to combine the three groups into one meeting, but maybe something to check out.
That's a good point. That might, yes, I think that's a good point to have all the interested parties meet at the same time instead of having separate meetings and then trying to put all our meeting minutes together to come up with a plan, a joint plan to go forward. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hey, any other comments or questions? Nia?
I have two questions. So number one, will it be everybody from each commission or would it be like a representative? That's my
No, it'll
first
be
question.
everybody from each commission.
Okay.
The more voices, the better.
Okay, great. No, that's perfect. The second question is, were they given the same, I know they were given some guidelines, but I guess the question is, what are the guidelines? Or can we have that ahead of time before our meeting to discuss the guidelines they were given by the city council and that we were given by the city council? So that we're kind of on the same
Yes.
page of what we've been tasked to do, I guess you could say, by the city council.
I believe that's possible. Any other comments?
Sure. I have a question. It just follows on naturally from Nia's. The agenda setting then, I'm just conscious of work being distributed. What is that going to fall upon staff? Is it something that Ben and Lauren will take on, or all of us, or some of us that get designated, or just what we're going to convene around seems important too, not just the convening.
A good point, Ian. I think that maybe we want to have a representative or two to set up the agenda and to meet with the, or not meet or discuss an agenda with the other parties, I think makes sense. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the chair or the vice chair doing that. We can have another representative from the commission doing that. I think the more they get involved, the better it is for that.
So if I may just give you a little glimmer into my conversations with the staff liaison to the HRC. We discussed that, both bodies are trying to do extensive outreach, generate community discussion around racial justice and social justice issues. How might we be reciprocal? How might we help one another? Both in receiving the outreach and the information that we would need to provide any potential artist to create an artwork, and how might public art or these public art projects be useful to the HRC's desire to have, I believe it was 100 conversations across the community. So perhaps there's a way we can reciprocate, help one another, and draw some synergy there, rather than, as Chair Miyagi said, try and do all of these things on our own smaller commissions. So that was some of the discussion we had. I believe the HRC already has one special meeting scheduled for next month. And they're looking at having a special meeting the same evening that we have our regular meeting. So one of the options could perhaps be that we start an hour earlier and have a special joint meeting from 6 to 7, and then both bodies go about doing their regular meeting business from 7 o'clock on.
That sounds good. Do you have a date for that next month, maybe?
I do. It would be the date of our regular meeting, which I believe is March 18th. Yes, March 18th.
Okay. All right, that sounds good.
I do have one other thought. Do you think it's reasonable or feasible to have an HRC board member or commission member on our selection panels? I don't know if that's too over, but I'm just thinking that might be an interesting possibility.
That's an interesting input.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I think.
Maybe we can offer that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can offer that up.
With racial equity and that sort of stuff, to have that involvement, I think would be a wonderful thing. Any other questions or comments? One thing I want to throw out, do we have a volunteer or volunteers to help coordinate the meeting with the HRC to come up with an agenda? Lauren and Nia? Okay, perfect.
I think that's going to be important. And now that we're incorporating the art center as well, we are going to need a pretty tight agenda.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. So I will check in on what the agenda is for that meeting with the Art Center and the Art Center Foundation to see if it makes sense for us to jump in on that meeting, or if it's too far off scope.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. All right, thank you, everyone. I think we've got this down. And the one thing that Benjamin Franklin said, that we all hang together, or surely we'll hang separately. So, the better united front we can present, the better off I think we are. Okay, now the other part of this is now the temporary artwork for King Plaza. And I think the last meeting, it was kind of left at using the existing mural hardware that is there to do that, and possibly have some sort of other platform to have temporary artwork, but not have both going at the same time, one or the other, not and. So any other comments or questions? And Ian, I know you weren't involved in some of this comment, and please feel free to jump in now. I'd really like your input on this about the temporary artwork for racial equity in King Plaza. And where it was left, as I said, that there is hardware in place right now to put up a mural in front of City Hall, to hang something there. And then there are some weight limitations to the plaza, being able to put stuff there. I think it's 125 pounds per square foot. 100 pounds per square foot. That planter area is a little bit more, but it's right on top of the parking garage. So that's part of the problem about weight limitations. And the other discussion was also, there's a small plaque on I believe it's as you looked at City Hall, the left shaft that goes down into the parking lot. There's a small plaque up there about why it's named King Plaza. And maybe to move that, relocate that, or even come up with something else to really name that King Plaza instead of that little plaque that, you don't even notice when you walk past. Now, any other comments or about what we want to do in King Plaza for the temporary artwork on racial equity? And Ian?
Sorry, and given that I missed the conversation, I'll still take you up on the invitation, Ben, but I do it delicately, hopefully. I think the idea of moving that, even there's like a bike rack near where that, putting that in a place of more prominence and considering its language and making clear the dedication of the area, again, strikes me as just a wonderful idea. I think that's great. I was thinking just quickly to respond, and I'm not sure I fully grasped the mural versus temporary art dichotomy. But I would think that we would want to be sure that we didn't think of it as an either or, that we were sort of moving back and forth between social justice and racial justice focused art and art that advances those causes, and then temporary public art as if there's something different. Hopefully all the art that exhibited in that space, whether it's up in the mural or in the traditional temporary space that you just described, will advance those same purposes, I would think. And I know that's the way we look at it, but there's a consistency moving back and forth between the two as opposed to this an A-B sort of situation.
Right. Okay, thank you. And the other thing too was that the temporary public art program that is in the plaza would be suspended or go away. So it wouldn't conflict with whatever message is up, either a mural or a platform of some sort to display the art.
I had another idea, now that we're talking about the plaque, that maybe we could even think about somebody redesigning the plaque. So do a call of saying we have this plaque, but we think it needs to be upgraded or updated or whatever terminology you want to use, and let people come up with some ideas. And I don't know if we've ever done that, that I know of, but that could be a possibility to reimagine what a plaque or monumental marker could look like.
Good point. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other comments or?
And also, though, I wanted to keep the temporary, though, public art too, the racial justice, social justice. So it's not either or, it's both.
All right. Thank you. Hey, anything else? So, it looks like the way that we're really leaning is the mural and some sort of a platform for a temporary art project. The mural, we know it's going to be a certain size. The hardware's there, so we can utilize that. But the platform now, what are we looking for some sort of a platform for temporary public art? Do we want to construct something, or could it be something like the labyrinth that's in there right now?
That's what
Something
I'm
like that?
thinking is we can still do a call for temporary art within our limitations.
Mhm.
So sometimes it'll be the big mural that works best for the artists. And then other times it will be like the labyrinth or the new piece coming in. But they know what our limitations are. So I don't think we have to do anything structural. What do you guys think about that?
I would agree completely, Lauren. I was actually thinking too, I will say the blue trees were never my exact favorite piece of public art, but I got the gist of it, and it was, and I appreciated it. But I would say it was, but I like the fact that and that, I think it was Alma Woods is an artist, a painter. But there was the artist who made the house. She's an African-American female artist, and I'm blanking on her name. I apologize. But that was, I think, that was like in the middle of King Plaza, but not on the planter area. So I like the fact of saying, City Hall is at your exposure, like the outside. I don't know if we can kind of say like the outside perimeter or whatever, and let people choose.
Well, staff could address it just the same way we do our temporary public art now, that we have various sites available, and depending on what kind of work the artist does, we can help them, get through their finalized design and all the engineering and determine what the best placement is, rather than having a defined pad per se that then the artwork has to fit on.
Now, the other thing though, I wonder too if it would be, I was thinking actually of the sculpture park at the National Gallery, but like there's, 6 or 7 different pieces at a time. Now they are permanent, but that could, I don't know if that's another option of having like 2 different artists at the same time. That's could be a little bit more costly, but it depends on what they do. But that might create some sort of dialogue or engagement, just food for thought.
Or you could have an overlap of the projects, one ending and the other one starting, and they have a little bit of an overlap to get that, both messages out at the same time. So it looks like what we're heading for is a mural and some sort of a project on the plaza itself, and depending on the artist and what they want to do. And then to Nia's point, also a redesign of the plaque. And I don't know if that would be a separate part of this, or that would be a part of it. Maybe that would be the first project in this, is the redesign of the plaque. Now, I'm not sure what your thoughts on that are, if we want to move in that direction or keep the redesign of the plaque as part of this overall project.
Ben, one more follow-up question with the plaque. Is the city hall or the city council have to approve it, considering the fact that it would be more of a permanent piece?
Well, generally, the artwork itself does not go to council. The contracts over a certain dollar amount due, but staff would need to look into the history of the plaque, who might have donated it, what were the circumstances behind the identification of that spot, all of those kinds of things before we start considering if we're going to relocate it or take it down and create something different.
Okay, and another point, this might be a good discussion. Thank you, Elise. This might be a good discussion item with the HRC. Now, one of the agenda items that we could put with our meeting, joint meeting with HRC and the Art Center. Hey, any other discussion or, yes, Ian?
Hey, Ben, sorry. I think this is unfair to you as chair, but since we just stepped back a sec, I had a further thought on the joint meeting, and with Lauren and Nia working up with their colleagues on the other commissions and the Art Center agenda, I'm sure that'll be tight and focused. But Nia actually came up with a specific idea. And I wonder if we shouldn't come, as you said, agreed ahead of time, with a couple of those, just thinking that an hour meeting with that many people on the call isn't really a space where we can sort of brainstorm aloud ways in which we can synthesize. I mean, I think Elise explicated the reasons why we're doing it and what our goals might be, but the actual mechanics through which we do it, of which I think Nia already flagged one that would be really great, are the sorts of things that are hard to sort of surface and then discuss, and then especially because we're going to be with folks we don't know, and we haven't had a chance to discuss them intimately. So I'm wondering if we shouldn't have a couple more offers, so to speak, of ways in which we would like to help the HRC help us, so to speak, or asks or offers of our support to them in ways in which Artsfeimer expertise can be offered. Or maybe we just want to brainstorm and then all reconvene. But it seems to me that 1 hour with 3 different parties and this many people to each party is going to be a difficult time to come up with like the actual mechanics of how we all work together.
I agree. Be at least 12 to 15, I would think.
Is the special, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead.
Oh, I just want to get the timing of this. I don't know if our joint meeting with HRC and Art Center has to happen prior to our March meeting, right? That special meeting is just the HRC happening from 6 to 7, is that right? Or would you want to have on March 18th? I'm just thinking about timing because I think Ian's right. We need to come up with some good offers about what we're thinking.
So the HRC is looking at the evening of the 18th. So we thought that it might make sense if both bodies met an hour earlier. I have no idea if that ties in with the Art Center and the Art Center Foundation's timing. So we've got to do a little homework, and I'll report back to Commissioners Taylor and Gordon on that.
I think Ian is really astute in his observation. And so the question I have is, when is the HRC meeting next? And I wonder if this could be a situation where, whatever we're offering from this meeting, maybe the staff can communicate with their staff and have some of those ideas and offers be presented at their meeting, so that when they come to, if provided that their meeting is before our joint meeting, so then, they're briefed, they have a chance to digest and bring, so that when, it's already pre-met, some of the, discussions could be a little meatier and close thinking.
All right, thank you, Sunya. Okay, so we're going to leave it up to Lauren and Nia for the agenda for the meeting with HRC and the Art Center, and come up with a date. And I know it'd be like herding cats to come up with a date that everybody can attend. So, okay, any other, okay, now the temporary artwork for the plaza, racial equity. So I think we've got a good basis to move forward now with a proposal. And I think next meeting is when we can nail everything down and what we want to do and move forward with that. So, it'll come in way before May, but the sooner the better, I think, to get that moving forward. We also want to talk about funding for that. And I know that the city is having a lot of budget issues right now, so that's something we have to be acutely aware of with funding. So, another issue that we need to bring up. And I think that might be the last issue that we bring up before we actually finalize everything. Any other comments, questions about either HRC Art Center joint meeting or the racial equity temporary artwork? Okay, thank you everyone for your input. I think we've got a good basic plan to move forward with. And then we just at the next meeting, we'll fill in the parts of it and move forward with it. Okay, and then Lauren and Nia will get with Elise and set up the joint meeting and come up with the date, which will be the hardest thing, and then get an agenda set. All right. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you all for your input. Any announcements? Ian, boy or girl?
A little boy called Remy,
All right,
who's
congratulations.
sleeping right now. Thank you. So this is a miraculous meeting so far as I'm concerned.
Well, I got to say, you're a brave man to have a toddler and a newborn at the same time. So congratulations. Hey, there's some public letters. Attachment, I didn't get the attachment, so no letter, no public letters. Okay, and then for your calendar, next meeting is March 18th. Same place, same monitor. And then we'll have an update on our our joint meetings with that. Any other announcements or anything? Okay, we're going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for attending. Mr. Mayor, thank you for attending. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon. All right. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Have a good
Bye-bye.
night.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.